Before starting the talk, let me say something about using people's questions most of the time. First of all, they are not remembered or written down verbatim. Try to write down sometimes much later the essence of the question, and by that time it may be formulated differently from the way that someone brought it up. Which does not mean that at the time the question was put in the person's own words, it was not listened to or understood. Also, even it was a maybe seemingly personal question. It is being used here, looked at a starting point, because our questions, personal as they seem, go much deeper and they are much more general. They apply to all of us at one time or another. Of course, we don't reveal who it is that asked the question. To not make a personal thing out of it. And when one's question is being brought up, can one watch whatever reactions may come up, and in the watching be free of these reactions so that the listening is open and vulnerable. Happens quite frequently that more than one person asks a very similar question. So then the way it's formulated may be a combination or synthesis of different questions, putting it into one. Someone asked, when you say one has to see for oneself, find out or understand for oneself, and also talk about this work as looking into oneself superficially, deeply, doesn't all of that reinforce the sense of self? Strengthen it? Someone else said, I find this looking into myself can become very self-enclosing, almost self-indulgent. Is that what you mean? Is that what you're talking about? Almost every time I use this expression in talking or writing, this seeing for oneself, I wonder what the reader or listener may understand under this oneself, for oneself. Am I doing this for myself? Because we say everyone has to do it by himself or for herself. No one can do it for you. That's what we mean by that. It has to happen here, directly, immediately. Immediately meaning without mediation. But the words could be understood as meaning doing this for this entity which is myself, which I cherish and uphold and want to see strengthen, which I'm attached to, am afraid for, need to defend and protect. And it is this very entity of me that needs this tremendous protection and defense. It's full of needs for approval, recognition, full of fear of abandonment or disapproval, loneliness. That we're questioning into that, what that is, whether there is in fact such an entity. So in saying, look for yourself or find out or understand for yourself, what is meant is don't rely on someone else to do it for you. Don't trust promises of another that he or she can do this for you. One may believe in someone else's powers of transmission or whatever. But that's belief. And from belief can come tremendous energies and feelings of security. There can be great clarity in one's belief. But the clarity of belief is not the clarity of no belief, of direct seeing, direct listening, direct insight, which has nothing to do with belief and is not the effect of belief. If this sounds dogmatic the way I talk, I'm not trying to pronounce dogma. Please find out for yourself. The observation that finding out the reactions, the emotions, maybe the connection between thought and feeling, observing, usually in retrospect, this is how we observe. Very difficult, right at the moment that an intense reaction comes up, like anger or fear, to be right there with observing without judgment, without retreat or justification. So, whenever observation takes place, does that become more self-reinforcing, more self-indulging, self-enhancing? It all depends. It depends on how this observation is taking place. Can that come under observation right now as we're talking about it? May not be possible because right now one is listening and one is not observing anger or fear. But as this observation takes place, when reaction comes up or after it has come up, is there a storyline accompanying the observation about myself? Weaving the observation, as it were, into the fabric of myself through a continued storyline, adding another chapter or paragraph. What I am, how good I am, how bad I am, how interesting I am, how worthwhile or unworthy. How seeing the way I am, I ought to become better, more worthy, or remain with this, which is very good. I hope I can stay this way. A constant weaving of this fabric of self through talking to ourselves about ourselves, or in thought, or when we're with people, maybe by discussion or conversation. Or while we're conversing, also thinking about ourselves, or while we're taking a walk, alone or together, thinking about ourselves and talking to ourselves about what we have found out or what we are thinking about ourselves. Maybe observing at a moment of directness, and yet it immediately gets woven into the fabric of my life, me. My just pronouncing that and saying that may already sound to the conditioned ear as judgmental. And with that, another thread goes into the fabric. I shouldn't be doing that, what she's talking about. I shouldn't have storyline about myself. Shouldn't think about myself. It's not what's being said. What we're asking is, can there be awareness of it? Because someone said, isn't the looking into oneself and observing oneself enhancing the sense of self? A very, very important question to ask oneself. And then not answer it, yes I am, or no I'm not, or I shouldn't, or maybe this is fine, because everybody has a sense of self. That's the most natural thing we have. We can't help it. It's our human nature. We need it. We need a self to get rid of a self. All kinds of ideas we have. And can a question like, by observing myself, looking into myself, is the self sense enhanced or indulged in? Can that question be left open? Not yes or no, should or shouldn't. But I'll watch it, I'll see it. There's something to observe which is more subtle than just what just has been thought or said or emoted. The reaction to it, the internal weaving of this fabric of me. It's amazing once the mind gets onto it, how much of this is going on all the time, reflecting upon oneself. One's goodness, one's poorness, one's existence as a victim or as a whatever. There's always some new role emerging or some new identity grabbed onto, grasped. And maybe the reason the mind is, that there is no awareness of it, is that it happens so habitually. As habitual as were all the judgments and reactions coming at us since we were the tiniest of children. We tell our children constantly what they are and what they're not, what they should be. Not just we as parents, but the brothers and sisters, the friends, the people on TV, the teachers, the people in church, synagogue. What we are, we're told, we're reacted to. Don't be like that. Be like so-and-so. Why can't you be like your brother or the neighbor child who's always so polite when she comes to our house, of course? So that all of that is how we learn to do that and take it over. The brain takes it over. Brain is an imitative machine, an imitating machine. I think I mentioned once how in talking at the table at our children's place, The little girl, Adrian, was sitting way off. She was playing with something. But every once in a while she would pick up a phrase that was said at the table among the adults. She picked it up and just sort of echoed it with the same inflection, intonation. She wasn't entering into the conversation. It was just happening. She was learning. Learning to say things the way the people around her were saying them. That process was going without any intention to learn or to do homework. So if this work of becoming aware of what is going on in the mind and body does nothing more than add to the fabric of self by the constant reaction to what is being observed, the judgments, exhortations, or patting oneself on the shoulder, verbally, in thought and image. If that's all what happens, it's true, and it just becomes enhanced, reinforced, added to, or the opposite of enhanced, degraded, or denigrated. But never in talking about looking into oneself and seeing the reaction come up, the thought connected with the sensation, the feeling, the emotion, the painful state or discomforting state resulting in the body and new thoughts issuing from it. Never do I remember just saying, pay attention to that only, exclusively. Focus on that. Rather, we try to listen to what else is going on. And can that be undivided, not separate from what is observed internally, as it were? Starting with the most concrete, the sounds, someone moving a leg on a mat, and the breathing, the movement of it, the sound of it, the inward sound of breathing, the feeling of it, the chirping of a bird, the people around one. And of course, outside of retreat, one is in touch, isn't one, with other people that one is in relationship with. One may occasionally see the news or read a newspaper. So can one also be in touch with what is going on in the community or in the world at large? And wonder whether there is a connection between what is going on, which is observed as going on within, and what is going on a magnified scale in the world. Wonder about the connection. If one gets particularly upset over something that is happening, in the world, terrorism, war, crime, drug addiction, abuse, our inability to live peacefully and lovingly with each other, the hatred and expression, can one wonder where this comes from and wonder whether there's a connection to what happens on the smallest scale in ourselves and in our relationship with each other, non-judgmentally, just to find out. So that observing, looking, and comprehending is not focused and enclosed in this one person here, but opens out to everyone and everything, all the happenings in the world. Which are made up of people like you and me. Sometimes a bit more fortunate in outward circumstances, most of the time much less fortunate. Living in poverty, in wars that have been going on for years and years and years, sometimes for centuries. Some people in spots on this earth have not known peace for generations. And by peace, I mean here, not the peacefulness of loving relationship alone, but no killing, ambushing, hostage taking. How does it come to that? One wants to find out, sort of get a grip on it. It seems so incomprehensible. It's often how we express it when we read something. I can't, it's unbelievable, we say. How can this happen? Mass murder. One person getting a machine gun out and gunning down 10, 15 people. How is it possible? And can one, if one doesn't comprehend it, leave this open and wonder? What in the human mind can happen to lead to such action? The human mind, which is capable of designating enemy and friend, ally and foe. And then through that designation, helped by a lot of propagandistic imagery, single out people for death or for deprivation or imprisonment. The brain with its image screens from piled up from memory, correct or incorrect memory, can screen out seeing someone as a human being. Screen it in such a way that what that person does may just be seen to reinforce that image that's already there, because the image also screens out the input, what comes in. Black people are in such and such a way, so one looks for certain cues already, not taking in the whole. We live with an incredibly dangerous organ up there in the head. All of us. Which can blur and deceive and distort instantly. And our actions come from what we perceive, what we think, what we've been told and indoctrinated in. this can be observed for oneself in our daily relationship with each other. The distorting influence of the brain, of imagery, of memory. We see somebody, and this person reminds us of someone else who also looks this way or talks in this way, dresses in this way, comes on in this way. And we react to the accumulated memory association, believing all the while that we're acting on what we see in front of us. So, observing, witnessing how the brain functions. And that is enormous work, because we take security in our perceptions, in our beliefs that form our images, that affect our perceptions, that affect our actions into relationship. We take security in that, comfort in it, safety in it. This being a fact that has comfort taken in the fabric of our imagination, belief, prejudice. Can there be a change in that? A change in perception, a clearing of perception. Which means a freedom from the impact of all the past learned and often cherished associations. Cherished partly because of their security they give us, or the identity they give us, being somebody through our beliefs and ideas and prejudices. It's all tremendously involved, isn't it? As one looks at it. Because if we go into depth and ask in depth whether there can be freedom from this, we're rattling at our very foundation. What I am. The amazing thing is that with all the givens that we have tried to sketch imperfectly, with all the givens about the operation of the brain and perception and action, it is possible for there to be direct insight, free from past accumulations, as possible. To see directly the whole fabric of self and the continuing process of weaving the fabric. Changing patterns, changing colors, changing lightness or darkness. That is the continuation of it. One can see that. It can be seen to take place. And in a first seeing of it, it loses some of its power. At least at that moment, it loses its power. is not something convincing and real. It's seen for what it is. Because then does fear come up? Well, what am I? Which is thought and part of the fabric, added to the fabric, coming out of the fabric. What will I be? Or I have seen something. Again, weave that into the fabric. And with that, as the fabric exists as being in this ongoing process of weaving, which we share with each other. We weave into each other endlessly, continuously. Can that be seen this moment? Not begging for a long time or eternity, but see it. From a place, if we may carefully use that word, from a place of no fabric, no nothing, no judgment, no right or wrong, good or bad, me or you. It's just all of us in this. Not just in this room, but the world over since time immemorial. In such thinking and looking and discovering, the self does not get enhanced or reinforced, it gets exposed. And one may find out that at an instant of such exposure, energy is released, which was bound up in this fabric. The fabric of meanness the world over, which is also the fabric of endless sorrow, endless conflict. So if there is a moment of insight or a time of seeing clearly, people often get discouraged, and so quickly the thought takes over about being someone special. But that's just the habit of the way we think about ourselves. Why get discouraged over it? Just see it and not take it so seriously. It's just what goes on habitually in all of us. There's such an immensely strong precedence for it, there's an immensely strong likelihood for it to go on. So can one see that without being overwhelmed by it or drawing conclusions from it? Just see that running cloth, or sometimes we've called it the running river self-consciousness, which is not personal, it's all interwoven, intermingled, one whole stream of it all, cloth of it. Without reaction, is that possible? Or if the reaction comes up, to see it and be done with it, not let it become a momentous thing that we then have to react, emote, and out of the emotion more thoughts. Just to see what's going on every once in a while, when there is a moment of waking up. One person said, when one sees or looks at the sky with its intensity, the clouds of many different colors, the filigrane of trees without leaves, branches without leaves against the sky, the wet earth and a herd of deer moving across a brown field. Eating and looking, and sometimes prancing around each other. Why are we human beings so out of touch with that most of the time, in conflict with ourselves and each other? Not to rush to answer a question like this, but leave it there. If it's really genuine and deep, why this conflict within myself, with myself, and with each other? The moment someone criticizes someone or asks somebody to do something or sounds rough or angry, as hurt, pain, maybe feeling humiliated, wanting to lash out. That happens. It happens all the time. Can we look at it as it happens, alone or maybe together? If we can look at that together, it's a marvelous thing. Not in order to find out who was right, but to all look at hurt, humiliation, the urge for power to tell someone, to criticize someone, to get allies in one's bad feelings about some other person. All of that is so utterly common, isn't it? So mundane, ordinary. But it moves our lives and keeps them in turmoil, out of touch with the sky and the ground. So in looking at hurt, pain, humiliation or anger, envy or whatever, jealousy, hatred, or longing or fearing, can one look simply, spaciously? Without being invested in the looking or in what is looked at. Just the looking. And if reactions come up, that's part of the looking. One looks at those too. With that, the space, the looking space and the listening space expands, opens up, because it includes everything. Everyone and everything. We will end here for today.